Hello everyone, welcome to the 9th Science Salon. My name is Sharon Wu, a science communicator from Kyushu University's Public Relations Initiative, and I will be your host today. 皆さんこんにちは。第9回サイエンスサロンへようこそ。本日の司会を務めさせていただく九州大学広報本部のご新林です。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。九州大学は多様な知と人材を結集し、総合地で社会見学を牽引する大学を目指しています。サイエンスサロンではそういう総合地により社会に貢献する魅力的な研究を行っている先生たちをお招きし、カジュアルな雰囲気で対談を行っております。So to introduce Science Salon quickly, this is a space where we talk with researchers whose work reflects Kyushu University's Vision 2030, which is to drive social change with integrative knowledge. それでは本日のゲストを紹介させていただきます。本日お迎えしたのは九州大学言語文化研究院の准教授ガブリエル・デカマス先生です。ガブリエル先生はロンドン大学ゴールドスミスカレッジで視覚文化学の博士号を取得され、現在は芸術、哲学、そして倫理学を中心に研究をされております。研究のトピックの一つとして原爆に関する表彰文化をも取り上げられております。So Gabrielle 先生、bienvenue. Welcome to Science Salon. And could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
So first, thank you for having me on the Science Salon. I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Gabrielle Decamous, and I am an associate professor here at Kyushu University in the Faculty of Languages and Cultures. Before that, I taught, and I was also a PhD student at Goldsmiths, University of London. I was born in France, but I spent most of my life in the US and the UK and other parts of the world, and Japan. And I've been here in Japan and Kyudai for 13 years.
Amazing. Wow. Lovely to have you here today. So I'm really curious, how did you step into this field?
Oh, so it's a very good question. Before I started a PhD, I was a Hila Rebe Fellow. It's a big title, but it means a researcher for the Guggenheim Museums. And it was a fellowship. It's in New York and Bilbao, Spain, and Venice, Italy. And when I was at the museum in Italy, I came across a book, exhibition catalog by a group of artists from the 60s, 50s, 60s called the Nucleare. So an Italian group of artists devoting their practice to represent the atomic age with atomic mushrooms and drippings of paint. And back then, I realized that all these works about the nuclear age are forgotten. And this really piqued my interest, and the more I started to research into the area, the more artworks and disasters, or artworks about disasters I have never heard of, came to the surface. And that's how I stepped into the field.
Amazing. So I'll do a quick summary in Japanese. 先生は昔グーゲンハイムのミュージアムで博物館で働いたことがあって、でイタリアで働いた時に1950年代60年代の芸術作品に出会って、そこでもう原子力時代のアートワークでしたよね。でそこでそういう作品とかあるいはそういう物語がいかに人々に、忘れられたっていうのに、惹かれてその研究を始めました。It's really a nice story. Thank you. I can see that you have research experience in the US, in the UK, in France, of course, and also now in Japan. What brought you to Kyushu University for your current research?
Oh, so coming to Japan was so important for me. I did my PhD in the United Kingdom, and I came across many artworks that were mostly focusing on the atomic mushroom. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the city actually razed as if without any victims, as if the victims just evaporated. And one of the main narrative was the military. So Oppenheimer, the Manhattan Project. So it was, that's what I found. But coming to Japan, it gives me a different idea of the atomic bombings, and then more because there is the museum in Hiroshima and one in Nagasaki, but there is also what happened in Fukushima. And then the incident of the fishing boat. I forgot the name of the fishing boat. The fishing boat that was contaminated by the bikini test. So in Japan, I found a wealth of artworks and books, academic books, and then I thought, naively, I would stay here 3 years, but it's been 13 years and I'm still discovering works. So
that's a long story.
Yeah, very grateful to be here.
先生は、博士号を取っていた時に、やっぱヨーロッパでは、マッシュルームのような原爆のキノコに関する作品がやっぱ多くて、でそこでやっぱ広島、長崎で生きていたあるいは被害者たちがその画面に現れていないところに気づき、でやっぱ日本に来るのは重要だと気づきました。でそこから日本では、いろんなミュージアムがあって、もちろん広島でも長崎でも、そこから福島での、そのアクシデントもあって、そういういろんな作品を見て、最初は3年間ぐらいここにいようと思いましたけど、今はもう13年目になりましたね。Yeah, that's true. Like when I'm exposed to a lot of visual arts or like the works. So for example, the one that you brought here, the Oppenheimer, which was really like a big name, maybe 2 years ago. So from your point of view, what are the key differences between Japanese and Western storytelling of the A-bombs?
So this is interesting that you point out Oppenheimer. So I chose these two movies, Oppenheimer because it became a big blockbuster, and an American Hollywoodian movie. And in the United Kingdom, Dr. Strangelove is very much liked in the West, at least. It's a little bit more cynical, so there is probably much more interesting things there. But what I have with this is really the narrative of the military and the scientists of the Manhattan Project or the Cold War. And so we have only one side of the story. Whereas when I came to Japan, I came across the voice of the victim, the hibakusha. And this has really changed completely my understanding of the bombings. And so what I was confronted with was the Western understanding of the bombing, which in fact is a result of a very strong censorship and control by the military on the image of the bombings. But looking at Japanese artworks, then I came across the side of the victims. So, for example, here I came across the Genbaku Bungaku, the A-bomb literature. It's a genre unique to Japan and to the world, which is a collection of novels, not exactly novels, but books, some of which, at least the first generation, are written by hibakusha. So some hibakusha who were writers before lived through Nagasaki or Hiroshima and wrote about it. So I'm going to give you an example who is from Otayoko. Otayoko for me is the writer of the atomic age and of the bombings.
I know she's a female writer, right?
She's a female writer, yes. And she wrote a book called Shikabane no Machi, City of Corpses, which is really directly tells her experience. And she wrote it very quickly after the bombings on pieces of paper she could scatter or retrieve from her home, like toilet paper and futsimador. And so I'm going to read from it a little bit, if you don't mind, so you can really see the difference. There is a translation of this so that's
amazing.
Okay. All right, so this is a part when after the bombings, Otayoko and her sister and mother and niece are going to try to find a safe place before trying to reach a hospital. So there are a lot of other people who were injured that joined them. And she described them. I'm going to read. The women were an ugly sight. A girl was walking about naked with nothing on her feet. A young girl had not one strand of hair. An old woman had both shoulders dislocated and her arms hung limply. People were no longer vomiting up everywhere, as had been the case yesterday, but there were people whose bodies were covered with broil-like burns, skin hanging off, bleeding, exuding an oil-like secretion, that are all slept naked on the sand. So sand and blades of grass and bits of straws and the like were pasted onto the putrid-looking flesh of their burns.
That's so vivid.
It is so vivid. And that's all the difference for me, all the between a movie like Oppenheimer's that gives perhaps in a 3-hour movie, maybe half a second to the victims, and a book like Otayoko, which really directly describes the suffering of the victims. So I really see these two different things. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but they should be complementary.
やっぱ西洋では軍隊あるいはもうマンハッタンプロジェクトに関する言説が多い。でも一方日本ではやっぱここに生きていた生き生きとしてなんていうか人々だったので、そういうなんていうか身近な物語がもう西洋の視点からは初めてでしたって感じでしょうか。そうなんですね。Yeah, it is quite different, I think. Especially like she's a female writer, she knows how, like I'm not really sure if it's the right word to use, innocent, like the mothers and child, how they're exposed in this war and how their home and themselves are destroyed. It's a totally different story.
Yes.
So my second question will be like in the works you study, besides the example that you showed us, what kind of representations of nuclear warfare did you encounter, and through what artistic forms are they presented? Could you give us some specific examples?
So for atomic bombings, you have so many different things. What I've just described between Oppenheimer and Otayoko, it's a little bit, clear-cut, but it's not like that. There are also other American works that are very thought-provoking. For example, there is an American, but again a female American painter, Nancy Sparrow. Her name is Nancy Sparrow, and she did a series of works with atomic mushrooms, and she calls them sperm bomb, meaning that the bomb, war is mainly a man thing. And so it's not just, it's more complicated than what I just described. But what I found is really like the military, the atomic mushrooms in the West, all science fiction, and fictional stories. And then in Japan, it's really the side of the victims. That's what I really found. In terms of media, it was mind-blowing for me that any artistic genre was used. There were music, theater, opera. At the end, I didn't take the opera. There is an American opera called Dr. Atomic, for example, with minimalist music. It was beautiful. So opera, poetry, manga. I have a couple of mangas here. In Japan, we know Hadashi no Gen, for example. Manga, movies, science fiction, video games, if we can call this an art. It spreads completely, like the whole spectrum of artistic production. That really in Japan, not always, but in most of the cases I found, like Otayoko, that we start with the victims.
Yeah.
Another example I have here is this little book called Genbaku no Ko, and I thought that was also very interesting that a lot of work was done also for the children. So this is a poet who had a workshop with some children who were hibakusha, and he helped them put into words, into poems, their feelings, and this is heartbreaking. You do not find this in the U.S. or in France or anywhere else.
子供たちによって作られた詩。Oh, that is, wow. I can't wait to read it. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. We can see your book here, The Invisible Colors, The Arts of the Atomic Age. So in your recent book, could you briefly tell us what it is about, what is invisible, and how arts can make them visible?
Thank you. So this book is about more than 100 years of representing the atomic age. So it's about, I start with Marie Curie's time, and I move on chronologically, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the Cold War, in the Marshall Islands, French Polynesia. I move on to 3 Mile Island, which is the first American near accident, nuclear accident, Chernobyl, Fukushima. I also write about nuclear waste because there are artworks about nuclear waste as well. And then there is one big invisible in all this is uranium mining. And that was the surprise for me when I started researching. Whether you want to build a bomb or you want to build a power plant, you need uranium. And so uranium mining has always kept under the radar, and it's really invisible. But it started, there is a pattern on how all this started. And the pattern was, it was always secret, or most of the time in a very crushing number of time on colonial land or native Indian land in the US and Canada. And the third thing is that it was the safety levels, which were known since Marie Curie time, were never respected at first. So you have communities that were not only exploited, native people being exploited, but their land and people were contaminated. And that's what I found by looking for the artworks that were produced on this as well. So what comes out, what is this? All these disasters. The main message of my book is that very often it is said that the nuclear age is the unspeakable, the invisible, because radioactivity is invisible. But in fact, for more than a century, artists, academics have been writing on the topic and representing the atomic age. So it is not the unthinkable, and it is not invisible, because the effect of radioactivity, the effects are visible, and artists and survivors, Hibakusha, writes about it, make paintings, make films about it. So overall, the end result is, for me, the going against the official military or state narrative, the one controlled by censorship, by looking at the victims themselves, or mediating the voice of the victims. So I'm quite passionate about it. So.
Yeah, that's an angle. Like, I think that's really an important angle that we can lead to the true peace, like to provoke people thinking more about peace instead of how powerful these weapons are. 日本語で簡単にまとめてみます。この本はもう100年以上の原子力に関する、アートのもう集大成って言ってもいいでしょうか。最初はマリー・キュリー夫人の、作品から、あるいはもうそれに関する表彰から、また広島長崎、その後の冷戦とかいろいろ、それに関する、文学芸術いろいろ取り上げられております。で、何が見えないかというと、やっぱウランとかそういう放射線とか、それは実際私たちは日常生活で見えないものです。で、また原爆だけでなく原子力パワープラント、そういうものは大体見えないところに建てられております。もう秘密裏に建てられた、あるいはもう植民地で立ち上げられて、あるいはもうそのどれぐらい安全度とかに関する情報は本当に公に出していないかなっていう角度からやっぱ見えないっていう視点ですよね。で、一方そういう見えないものが実際本当に見ちゃいけないですか、喋っちゃいけないですか、それは違います。何十年何百年に続いてそれに関するアートワークあるいは作品が続けてきました。むしろ、芸術家だけでなく学会でもいろんな研究が進んでおります。その方たちによってあるいはそういう作品によっていろんなもうトラウマとかそういう原子力による影響とかそれが見えるようになっています。で、最後にまとめて言いますと、やっぱこういう物語の、ナラティブがオフィシャルなもうセンサーシップによってベースから作り上げられた物語とは違って本当にもう被害者あるいは本当に平民たちの視点から作り上げられているもう集大成の作品です。Okay, amazing. Thank you for writing this book and thank you for the story.
10 years of my life.
Oh, it took you 10
it.
years to
Yeah.
write about 100 years of artwork.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Not too bad.
Yeah, that's what like you wanted to do in 3 years, but that's what made
Yeah.
you extended to
Yeah.
30 years.
And also learning Japanese.
Yeah, 日本語は難しいです。
Yeah, but it's another story.
Yeah. Okay, because we touched like the female author and Marie Curie, of course. Let's move on to the next part about female and nuclear. 次のパートに進めたいと思います。女性と原子力。I can see that you brought some interesting objects here. Would you like to introduce to us?
Yes, so these are actual items that were made, and you can see the distinctive color, which is green. So you could see like you have like a glass, so tableware, jewelry, but they also did like watches and things like that. And they are made, they are colored by uranium or radium or uranium. And in fact, they glow, if it works. There you go. It glows in the dark. I don't know if it's
Dark enough to see.
yeah, dark enough to see. So already very early on and way before atomic bombs, there were some industrial applications of radioactivity with radioactivity.
原爆と武器として使われている前にウランはこういう日常的な、ジュアリーとかグラスのコーティングとして使われたことがあります。It's like this is kind of like in our daily life, and also jewelry, I can't really make the connection of female. I know this is a stereotype, it's not really good. But,
The next question is Marie Curie.
yes, so like when we are coming to the radioactivity and nuclear, we might think of Marie Curie. Is your work related to her, and how is she represented in the literature or art?
So the very surprise also for me is that there is a flurry, like a lot of works at the time of Marie Curie.
At that time?
Yes, a lot.
At her age?
A flurry, like I could have written an entire book out of this. So I'm going to try to do very simple. I selected about three artworks, okay? So the first one, so this is the image I have, is a dancer, an American dancer called Loy Fuller, and as crazy as it is, she actually collaborated with Marie Curie and Pierre Curie. Yes. I was very excited. Ooh, it gives me goosebumps just to talk about it. She collaborated with them. Loy Fuller was very important in new dance and modern dance. And she designed new types of dances. And you can see here on the picture, this is called the serpentine dance. And she had a large piece of fabric with some sticks at the end, and she would wave the fabric so she would look like a butterfly. And she had some lightning effect, but she wanted to have the costume glowing in the dark. So she went to the Pierre and Marie Curie's laboratory to discuss what's possible and what's not. And of course, it was too dangerous. But she managed to somehow have some kind of glow-in-the-dark tubes. So the next picture is how it would look like, pretty much. There is no record of this dance. She performed it once in New York, and it was in a dark studio, and many dancers who flutter around like butterflies or insects with glow-in-the-dark things. So this is one example. Another example I have is a radium dance. So they did, it was a musical. It's about radium, and again, there were supposed to be some dancers jumping on a cord, a luminous cord, but I don't think it was very effective. And then the third artwork is, if you can give me Agatha Christie. No. There were so many novels, and the main narratives were radium bombs, strangely enough, way before the actual idea of a bomb, of the Manhattan Project. So on paper, bombs already existed, radium bombs, radium spaceships,
wow,
radium cure, to be forever young, and then radium bandits. I call them bandits, like Dolobosan. They would steal radium because it's expensive. It was expensive, exactly. And here, for example, there is one novel by Agatha Christie in which one of the characters is designed or thought or inspired by Marie Curie. If there is time, I can read the description. So one of the characters, her name is Madame Olivier in French. All right. It was from Madame Olivier, the world-famous scientist, whom she had visited yesterday in connection with the Halliday case. It asked us to come out to Passy at once. We obeyed the summons without an instant's delay. Madame Olivier received us in the same small salon. I was struck anew with the wonderful power of this woman, with a long nun's face and burning eyes, the brilliant success of Becquerel and the Curies, the same, she came to the point at once.
It's really interesting to see how our favorite authors are connected to that generation.
Yes, it has been quite a surprise for me that so many famous writers or artists, here I don't have an entire selections, but very famous, even American artists like Chris Burden or Jackson Pollock would actually write, or Barnett Newman would write about the nuclear age or do works, even if it's just one artwork.
So it's science fictions and
crime novels.
Yeah, crime novels.
Yeah.
So we can see Curie Fujin was a big name at that time, or she at least inspired a lot of people at that age.
Yes. Oh, and I forgot to say that, of course, and that this is more recent, but Marie Curie, especially in contemporary time, really inspires feminist literature, and there is also a huge number of mangas or children's book on Marie Curie. There is one, sorry, that time also is the time of the Radium Girls. Do I have time to talk about the Radium Girls? All right, I'm going to show the images of the Radium Girls. It relates to this type of objects. The Radium Girls were factory high school girls, so around 16, 17 years of age. They were working in a radium factory where they would paint clocks, the dials, the numbers on the clocks with radium paint.
Oh, okay.
And they would do this to help their family, so they are from a poor background. But the problem is that they were instructed to put the paint on the paintbrush and to sharpen the paint into the mouse, which means to put the paintbrush into the mouse, to sharpen it, to make it precise and paint the numbers. And because of that, in very, very quick time, many of them actually had dire effect, like radiation sickness, necrosis of the jaw, amputation of arm or leg, and many died. Some contaminated their families as well, coming home with this thing. And I came across this because of many artworks here. So these are mainly posters of theater plays or movies or books that tells this life, this disaster. And this is at the time of Marie Curie. Marie Curie heard about it and said that there is nothing we can do, it's too late. And it's also a very famous story in the United States in which this woman sued the Radium Corporation, and they won. They won. Although they are poor high school girls, they won, how to say, money. So it is another of the...
a love story here.
That becomes visible for me through the artworks.
Yes. Wow. So we have the scientists who are discovering and researching on that, and we have the people who make them into weapons and also make them for approaching the radioactivity for their own livings. We have the victim side and also the military side. A lot stories surrounding the radioactivity and nuclear. I'm wondering if nuclear issues affect men and women differently?
Yes, that's also something I came across a lot. And so, concretely, women and children are more sensible to radioactivity than men. They are affected more quickly, and especially pregnant women. We all have probably in mind the pictures of the aftermath of Chernobyl with these children that were deformed. So a birth defect. And also radioactivity, depending on the level, for a pregnant woman, she's going to have a miscarriage. And that's also what I've learned much later on with all the artworks I came across in the Marshall Islands. So during the Cold War, and I was about to read from that. So the Marshall Islands, but also I don't know where to start because there's so many disasters. Maybe I'll start with uranium mining. So, for example, I'm going to start with uranium mining. I talked about Chernobyl a little bit and nuclear disasters, but uranium mining, because it was done without safety measures for the workers brought home clothes that were radioactive, and the water was contaminated in the communities living there. So
only themselves, but also to their families.
So the men, the workers, whether they were a native Indian like the Navajo, the example I'm going to give, or they were also a white American from the corporation, the mining corporation, they all got affected. And they have cancer, many lung cancer, or died very quickly, very young, but they also contaminated their families, and many, it destroyed the families because the mother would die very quickly, so the child had to be adopted elsewhere. So there was this, and this, for example, exhibition catalog, Hope and Trauma in a Poisoned Land, is the only exhibition I know of that actually covers this topic, and is made. The exhibition was made with artworks by native Navajo artists on the topic. It is found that even today, because the mines are not clean, the women still suffer miscarriages, still today. And the same is true for the Marshall Islands. There is a way higher rate of birth defects and miscarriages than before the bombings. Even though the population were pushed from the islands, relocated, they still suffered from it. So I'm going to read from a poem by Katni Jetnil-Kijiner, who is a Marshallese poet, and she wrote about this when she was a teenage girl. She did her history project, so the poem is called History Project, and she tells about how she comes across miscarriages. I read first-hand accounts of what we call jelly babies, tiny beings with no bones, skin red as the tomatoes, the miscarriages gone unspoken, the broken translations. I never told my husband. I thought it was my fault. I thought there must be something wrong inside me. So to answer your question, yes, women and children are affected more by radioactivity.
I do not know how to react to this. It's such a sad story. やっぱ原子力の影響は男性に対する影響と女性に対する影響はやっぱ違います。女性に対しては女性はもうちょっと敏感でそれに反応しやすい。特に妊婦さん、妊娠された方々がその影響が自分にとどまらず自分の子供にも影響がある。 またひどい場合もう硫酸とかもされています。むしろあるいは、自分の命を落としたことも少なくありません。でさっき先生が見せてくれた例の一つ、それはウラン採掘に関するもので、ウラン採掘の方々はその鉱山に入るときに何のプロテクション保護もなくて入っていて、その服にはそういう放射線とかに影響、そういう物質を持って家に帰って、自分だけでなく家族にもそういう放射線の、悪影響を持って帰りました。で若い大体男性で、採掘へ行って若い年にがんになって命をなくしたことも少なくありませんでした。でまた、もう一つの例ですけど、マーシャル島での話によりますと、やっぱ女性たちが多く影響されて、たとえ場所を移ってもそういう影響が残し続けています。今でも昔の影響で流産される女性がいます。
Yes. Now, also, for example, in this book, she tells about her niece who died of leukemia. So this is still happening.
In these days.
Yeah. Sorry, it's heavy.
Let's move on to the next question. Okay. I know this is a topic really heavy for everyone.
I think so, yes.
The next topic I want to ask is so we can see a lot of works related to female scientists and female carrying babies and like the families, but does the collective memory of A-bombs have a gendered characteristics?
Yes, we talked already about the narratives on the military and the scientists, and I think they are very male somehow, because the military mainly are men. But from women, there is also a lot that comes that come across, especially here in Japan. So I'm going to show the image of Sadako Sasaki. That's the memorial in the Hiroshima Peace Garden. And I came across many works about Sadako Sasaki. I hear a little bit more, especially manga or books about the story of this teenage girl who died of leukemia, and the paper crane. So I think the paper crane is a strong symbol as well. And in Japan also, the Hiroshima Maidan, it's a group of young Hibakusha who have been disfigured by the bombings, so they have keloid scars, and they were sent to the United States to have plastic surgery. And at first, when I read about this story, I was quite surprised because I thought the reason mentioned was because they are disfigured, they will not be able to find a husband, and so they will not be able to sustain themselves. And I was shocked by this, but at the same time, just for Sadako Sasaki's memorial, I think it is an interesting way to put forward that this bomb is not like any other bomb, and that civilians, women and children, were also affected. So I am shared a little bit between, but boys as well were affected, and they deserve to be sent to the US for reconstructive surgery. But at the same time, I understand the idea of having a public awareness that these bombings affected everybody, the young, the old, elderly people, fetus, babies, schoolgirls. I have much more positive things, however, is, for example, here in the United States, there were many activists, women groups activists. So here, for example, is the Women's Strike for Peace. It's a group of women in the 50s, 60s until I think the 70s, 80s, even all the entire Cold War. So housewives, but also schoolgirls of any age and any background, like poor, rich, wealthy, and they protested peacefully for a long time against nuclear weapons. And in one instance, they managed to have a protest that had like about 50,000 people across the United States of women saying no to nuclear weapons. And another example here is the Greenham Common Peace Camp in the United Kingdom, where some American nuclear weapons were stored, and the women had literally a campsite and would stay night and day, hundreds and hundreds of women staying there peacefully to protest these weapons. And they have several actions in which they had like a line of women. You see them lining all together with the hands of more than 1,000 and thousands of women across the entire military compound. So the women have been so important to give visibility.
I can't imagine how powerful it was. 女性は歴史の核兵器の廃止の活動も多々やっています。例えば、先生がさっき例を出しましたけど、5万人以上の女子学生あるいは女性が、平和に長い間ずっと、核兵器の廃止に関するプロテストをやり続けています。そう。あとはやっぱアメリカだけでなくイギリスでもそういう組織が存在しています。女性はそういう核兵器廃止の歴史あるいは推進しているプロセスの中で重要な役割を果たしています。
But the first one to do this were Tokyo elite housewives. They were the first one from Tokyo. Housewives from Tokyo. They were the first one to do a big petition.
最初はやっぱそれはイギリスでもアメリカでもでもなくて、最初は日本の東京で、主婦、家庭主婦たちさんたちがやり始めた講義でした。So that's really interesting to hear that it's in Japan. Of course, it's in Japan.
Yeah, of course.
So let's move to the last part. How do you see your research can contribute to our Vision 2030, which is to, and how can arts deepen our understanding of war and help us to reflect on the importance of peace?
Yes, to me, art is the place where people can really express themselves. There is a level of subjectivity which allows for really conveying, passing feelings and also about disasters. It helps also, as I try to show with all the artworks, how they would also give visibility to the victims. It was also what I tried to do with my book, to really build a bridge between a Western understanding of the bombings, or representation of the bombings, the Japanese one, the Marshallese one, native Indian with uran kosa, uranium mining. So to change the perspective, not just to erase the narrative of the military, but to also add the one of the victims. And it is really my belief that the more we circulate the images, the paintings, the films, the words of the hibakusha, the less the head of state will press the button to use an atomic bomb.
あ りがとうございます。やっぱ芸術は自分を自由に表現できるフォーマットの一つで、それも非常に重要な形式の一つだと思います。それは芸術によって自分の熱意、自分の感情、あるいは感じたこと、そして災害を、ビジュアルにいろんな形で伝えることができます。そういう、芸術はそういう被害者たちにもそういう被害者たちを可視化しています。先生の本も今の研究がやりたいことは西洋の世界の、視点と日本の視点、あるいはもうインディアの原住民たちの間に架け橋を作ることで、もう軍隊の物語、あるいはそういう話を消すことではなくて、他の被害者たちの視点をも入れつつ、もうちょっと全体像を皆さんに示すことによって、そういうボタンを押す権力を持っている方たちの押したいという思いを抑えるって感じですよ。Sorry for the bad translation.
Oh, no.
It's really a heavy topic, and I can't really not focus on at the very end. So, okay, let's conclude here, and we have a final note. So finally, this year marks 80 years since the end of World War II, and it's also 80 years since the atomic bomb of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The day when we will release the video, hopefully, I think it's August 6th, which is also Hiroshima Peace Memorial Day. We are now witnessing a lot of tragedies in many countries or regions these days, and hope this timing will offer a moment to reflect on the tremendous and long-lasting impact of the A-bomb and the devastating reality of war and the enduring importance of peace. So, finally, Gabrielle Sensei, is there any message that we want to share with our audience?
I was I was ready to talk about Ukraine and
Gaza,
Iran and North Korea, but I don't think we have enough time.
It's fine, we can cut everything.
Okay. But my at the moment things are not going very well. On the one hand, it always is one step ahead, like forward, two steps behind. But the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the way they took over the power plant, the nuclear power plant, is a new type of threat. Because if they provoke an accident, Europe is completely contaminated. So this is really a new type of threat. And I see also with the bombing of the nuclear facilities in Iran by the United States and the continuing nuclear program in North Korea, that we have not left the Cold War. That the Cold War is still there, and that we have to resolve these issues. And it for me, listening to the victims is really the most important. And Japan, the Nihon Hidankyo, won the Nobel Prize, and I think this is such a great hope. And I would like to finish on this positive, amazing thing that happened, hoping that this will last.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Merci beaucoup.
translating.
Thank you for
this crazy talk.
this crazy talk. これをもちまして第9回サイエンスサロンを終わらせていただきたいと思います。本日はありがとうございました。